This is the port city of Tarragona. Down there is the train station that I took to go to Barcelona. We have the beach in front of us here. Beautiful beach. Apparently the beach beyond the point is even more beautiful. Here is the Rambla Nova, which is one of the two main sort of pedestrian walking zones here in Tarragona. Turn of the century buildings there, and of course one of the attractions here is the Roman ruins, and we'll just go there. Tarragona, of course, was a Roman city first, Tarraco, and this is not a tourism video that I'm doing here. I want to though point out that when the Romans arrived here, of course, there were a variety of languages spoken here. Whatever the original Spanish language was, they eventually converted, however, to Latin, or a form of Latin, which subsequently became not only Spanish, but also, of course, Catalan. And yeah, I don't have any immediate signs here to show you that in fact this is a place where lots of languages exist. And this is sort of a lead-in to my theme today, a new approach to language learning based on the idea that if we learn lots of languages, we end up learning them all better. And so that's kind of the message that I want to leave you with, and maybe I should get into the main theme of my video, which is learn languages better by learning more of them. Hi there, Steve Coffin here from Tarragona, and I want to talk today about a completely new theory of language learning that has suddenly come to me over the last few days, and I'll explain that. But first I'll show you a bit of Tarragona. So here we have, as you can see, we have the ocean, and here we have some Roman ruins which we're going to be exploring, and the whole city is beautiful, quiet, friendly, Catalan, although 50-50 Catalan and Castellano. Let's see how we're going to set this up here. All right, so here I've been doing interviews. 6 yesterday, I had one this morning, I have another one in half an hour. And I suddenly realized that while I have done very little in Spanish, my Spanish is over the last, say, 20 years. I was here for my 50th birthday, and I had trouble communicating in Spanish. And I remember that I bought a book, and it was the first book I had ever read in Spanish. And I remember that there were many words there that I didn't know, and that was one of the motivations for getting into LINC, because I got tired of looking words up, making a list, and never remembering anything. So that's whatever it is, 24 years ago. And here I am today having interviews, and my Spanish is better than it was then. I understand better. I'm speaking fluently, with mistakes, but more fluently. So I'm thinking to myself, why is that? And I'm increasingly convinced that it's the fact that I have been learning so many languages. In the last 12 years, I've learned or worked at 11 languages. And so I am more fit. My brain is more fit for language learning. So I am better at language learning than I was. 50 years ago, I'm better at these languages. Even languages that I haven't worked at, I am better at them. And so therefore, the issue of language learning is not a matter of learning the theory. Like people here in Spain, they learn one language essentially, English, like we do in Canada. In the English school system, they learn French. And you just keep on trying to learn that language, and you feel you're not making progress, and a majority of people give up and convince themselves they can't learn. And then we look at Sweden, where they have the English language and other foreign language television programs in the original language, as was the case in Croatia, where English language skills are very good. So then you say, well, all right, then first of all, people say, well, in Sweden is similar to English, therefore they learn. But in Croatia, it's not similar to English. The pronunciation is not similar to English. Nothing is similar. And yet there again, they speak with very little accent, and they speak very well. So I believe that it's this idea that they have the original version of movies and television programs. But it's not just that this helps them learn English. It's that this makes them more language fit. It exposes them as kids initially to different languages, different sounds, different ways of saying things. This means then that when they go to learn, say English, focus in on some of the grammar, acquire words, they're more capable of doing it. They notice things better. They have a context. First of all, they're comfortable with the idea that they're listening to things that they don't really understand that well, and they manage to somehow gradually understand more and more. So this uncertainty, which is the sort of accepting uncertainty, which is so important for language learning, is something that the kids acquire by watching cartoons in strange languages. So the idea of exposing yourself to a language, and in my case, learning a number of languages, makes me a better language learner. Why is it that polyglots can go from speaking 3 languages to speaking 8 languages? Because with each language, their brain becomes more fit. So if I look at particularly the last 4 or 5 languages where I've used our mini stories, the mini stories is like a health club. It's like a fitness club. It's where you start getting that fitness. You start in the middle of the language. You don't start with the colors and the numbers and the names of the members of your family and how are you and that kind of thing. You just start in a simple context with lots of repetition, and that way you kind of train yourself in the language, and at some point you graduate to Netflix and all these other good things that are available on the internet. So the theory then of language is, and perhaps the way languages should be taught, is to forget the idea of worrying about accuracy. You know, if I was in a bookstore here and I was looking for material on Catalan, and by the way, we're going to have Catalan at Link, and because the mini stories have been done in Catalan, and we're going to have them in Hungarian, we're going to have them in Thai, so it's just a matter of when we put it up. And the idea, you know, I look at what they have available to learn Catalan. It's grammar explanations, it's exercise books, and all of this stuff is frustrating, not real, not meaningful, low resonance, and doesn't help you learn. Whereas I know that if I plunge myself into mini stories in Catalan, in no time I will have a good sense of the language. At that point, if I want to look at a table of conjugations and stuff like that, it'll have meaning for me. But, so if we take an approach to language learning which is, say, in schools, expose kids to language, focus on comprehension, focus on exploration, become familiar with different sounds, different ways of saying things, and at some point, at the age of 12, at the age of 15, if these kids who have been then exposed to a variety of languages, whose brains have been expanded, who have increased their level of language learning fitness, if they want to then focus on one language, and I notice myself now, if I look at a conjugation table in Spanish where I've had so much exposure, especially recently, the conjugation table starts to make sense. But if I start with conjugation tables and then I am tested on my knowledge of the conjugation tables, it just builds up resistance to the language, and that's fundamentally wrong, and it's counterproductive. So we should have language teachers who are trained in teaching kids how to learn, where to find the sort of beginner material that gets them going, similar to our mini stories, where to find material of interest to them, guides them, where to find explanations, because if the kid's doing, I don't know, Chinese and the teacher's not familiar with structures in Chinese, but there's so many websites that explain all of that. So that the focus on language instruction should be to expose us to many languages, not worry about accuracy, not worry about how well you speak, not even worry about producing the language until you've had enough of the language in you. But don't focus on just one language, focus on a variety of languages. So here I am, once I come back from Spain, I'm going to continue my Arabic, Persian, and Turkish. So I'm pushing this sort of multi-language language learning to the extreme, because I think we are approaching sort of the age of the polyglot. I've said this before, that the facilities available through the internet, resources, language, you know, explanation, cooking material, Netflix, all of that stuff makes it possible to learn not just one but several languages. We're not limited by having a teacher with accreditation in French. There is no limit. And if we focus on comprehension and focus on exposing people to language and building up their language fitness, then at a time when they're motivated, then the learner, to focus in on one specific language, they will have a context that will make it easier to understand the grammar rules, to assimilate those, to notice how some of those structures occur in what they listen to and read, and it'll just facilitate language learning. Because what we're doing now is not effective. In Canada, there was a study in New Brunswick where in the English language, in the French language, in the English language school system, where they have French for 30 minutes a day for 12 years, at the end of the 12 years, the number of kids who were at an intermediate level of proficiency in French in New Brunswick after 12 years and 30 minutes a day was 0.66%. So in other words, 12 years of instruction was a complete waste of time. Far better to expose kids to languages of interest to them, aspects of the language that might be of interest to them, which at an early stage might just be cartoons, because they're not going to select things of interest, and then let them become, expand their language minds, develop their language fitness, and then later on, language learning will be much easier. So that's my new theory of language learning, and now I'm going off to explore Tarragona. Bye for now. Make my way back to our little apartment here. Just thought I would show you some more. The Roman wall here. Houses are built right into the Roman wall. Here we come to our square, where again there's a portion of the old Roman wall. This is the Plaza del Font, Plaza del Forum. So we're just off this. Here we have some kind of Institut Català de Arqueología Clásica, part of the wall here. This is our little square, and we were able to rent a small apartment for 5 days. Everywhere you see this Tarraco, which is the old Roman name for this town. And we have breakfast here in the square. And if you'll see number 32 off in the distance, that is the building we're in. We're on the second floor. We were hanging our laundry out a little earlier. And so, just so you see, Plaza del Forum, this is where we are.